Kansas City Chiefs ended up winning their second consecutive Super Bowl, courtesy of a 25-22 victory over the San Francisco 49ers. Now, we can sit up there and bloviate about all of this other stuff. We can talk about the greatness of Patrick Mahomes. People can sit up there and be tired of it. They could be, annoyed with it because obviously he's the giant right now and everybody wants to knock him off his pedestal. But the reality is you can't do it. Right now, what we have to talk about is where where this guy Pat Mahomes is. There's no way around it. He's the best in the game. He's the best in the world. He's the best in the modern era. There have been plenty of times I've wanted to sit up there and say Aaron Rodgers because he is a bad man. But even before his injury-riddled season last year, in which he only played a series, for crying out loud, before getting hurt on the fourth play of that Monday night game at MetLife Stadium, there had been plenty of opportunities for Aaron Rodgers to win a Super Bowl since 2010. He hasn't been able to get it done. Hasn't been able to get it done in NFC Championship games. Haven't been able to get it done on his home turf at Lambeau Field, rather. And we've seen it. We've seen them lose a playoff game to the San Francisco 49ers where he scored just 10 points. We saw him lose a season finale with a playoff on the line to the Detroit Lions before they made their ascension this season. We haven't seen such things from Patrick Mahomes. When we sit up there and we talk about Patrick Mahomes, let's cut through the mustard. He's been a starting quarterback in the National Football League for 6 years. All 6 years he's been to the AFC Championship game. 4 times, he's been to the Super Bowl. 3 times he's won a Super Bowl championship and was the Super Bowl MVP. And the one time that he wasn't, the one time that he lost, it was to Tom Brady. And oh, by the way, courtesy of having to run for his life because he had no offensive line to protect him against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In Tampa, by the way, for that Super Bowl. That's what we remember about Patrick Mahomes. But right now, I'd ask you to look at this. Super Bowl 58, clear path to victory to Super Bowl 58. Wild card game, Arrowhead Stadium, Kansas City, Missouri. The Miami Dolphins comes in there in freezing temperatures. And what does the Kansas City Chiefs do? They defeat the NFL's number 1 offense in total offense and number 2 in scoring offense. The very next week in the divisional playoff game against the Buffalo Bills, when they beat Buffalo 27-24 on the road in Buffalo at Orchard Park when everybody was questioning whether or not they were going to be able to get it done. What does he do? He wins 27-24. It's the 3rd time he's beaten Josh Allen and the Bills in the playoffs. They're 3-0 against the Bills. He goes to the AFC Championship game, clearly the Baltimore Ravens, who smacked around Detroit during the regular season, smacked around Seattle during the regular season, bum rushed and beat down San Francisco on the road during the regular season. That same Baltimore Ravens squad, Kansas City, went on the road in Baltimore against the soon-to-be 2-time league MVP in Lamar Jackson. And what does the Kansas City Chiefs do? They hold Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens offense to 10 points. They win the game 17-10, defeating the AFC's number 1 overall seed. And then they win in Super Bowl 58 last night. I'm looking at Patrick Mahomes and I'm saying to myself, my God, what else can he do? Do y'all know that in 4 Super Bowl appearances for Patrick Mahomes, he's been down 10 points each game? Did you know that? Did you know he was down by 10 points to San Francisco? Did you know? You know he didn't come back against Tampa Bay. Did you know that he was down 24-14 against the Philadelphia Eagles last year? And did you know that he was down 10 points yesterday? But look what happened. 3 of the 4 occasions, they end up victorious. Comparisons after halftime, Patrick Mahomes, knowing that they were struggling, knowing that they couldn't get anything going, complete 69.7% of his passes after halftime, 210 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, just an interception, 59 rushing yards in the second half and overtime. Patrick Mahomes is that dude. The Kansas City Chiefs receivers led the league in dropped passes. What does Patrick Mahomes do? He gets them to a Super Bowl championship anyway. Last year, they went to the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill, the cheater, who we know was a league MVP candidate in Miami this year because he's so electrifying. And without him, they won the Super Bowl. I know you got your bag, Tyreek Hill. I know you got your bag. You got your money. And you deserve every single freaking penny of those dollars. But I ask you something, Tyreek Hill, with all due respect. You sure you're happy with your decision? Now, let's clarify. I asked that question strictly for football reasons. I know it's a hell of a lot better in South Beach than it is in Kansas City. I get that. No argument there. No state income taxes in Florida either. I get that too. Warmer weather. I get that too. But I still say to you, for football reasons, playing with a quarterback, you sure you're good with your decision to leave Patrick Mahomes? Matter of fact, we have to now start drawing a comparison. I would dare say, ladies and gentlemen, this warrants a comparison between Tyreek Hill and Kevin Durant. Which one is worse? Tyreek Hill leaving Patrick Mahomes or Kevin Durant leaving Steph Curry? Because y'all saw that game-winning shot he hit Saturday night against Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns, right? Which one is worse? Which decision is worse? Tyreek Hill leaving Patrick Mahomes to join Tua Tagovailoa or Kevin Durant leaving Steph Curry to join Kyrie Irving? Which one is worse? Y'all debate it. I ain't going to even give you my answer right now. I'm going to hold on for a couple of days. I'm going to save that subject for another day. But it's a worthy question to ask, and don't tell me it ain't. Because when you see what Patrick Mahomes is doing, it's something special to behold. And we just got to call it like we see it and just be honest about it. Because there's really no way around this. By the way, before I move on to my next subject, Patrick Mahomes, 3-1 record in the Super Bowl. 65 completion percentage, 267 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Not an updated passer rating as of yet, but he's a 3-time Super Bowl MVP. Ladies and gentlemen, he may be the best of all time. Whether or not it's the greatest, I got to look at Tom Brady's resume. And I got to say, oh my goodness, I can't give him that. But you want me to tell you who else I can't give it to him over? In terms of Super Bowls, I can't give it to him over Joe Montana. The game was rougher. It was far more physical. You couldn't get penalized for passing gas at that particular moment in time. You had a lot of that going on. Joe Montana, the game was far more physical. There was a mugging that took place on a football field every second. And Joe Montana was still 4-0. 68% completions, 285.5 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, not one single interception, 0. And oh, by the way, a passer rating of 127.8. He's also a 3-time Super Bowl MVP. And if you want me to give Patrick Mahomes the GOAT status in official capacity, I'll tell you I don't need him to three-peat, but I need one more. You know why I need one more? Because Brady went 10 years without winning a championship after he won his third. He didn't win his fourth for 10 years, from 2004 to 2014. I don't need Patrick Mahomes to disappear for the next 10 years. So I just want to throw that out. Let me move on to this next subject real quick. Because now that we've expanded beyond Patrick Mahomes' greatness, we got to wonder about the Chiefs. And at some point in time, we got to ask the question, is there anybody that can conceivably really derail the Kansas City Chiefs? You win a Super Bowl despite receivers dropping passes. I mean, Marquez Valdez-Scantling actually caught a pass and ran backwards yesterday. What an idiotic thing to do. But what did Patrick Mahomes do? After Chris Jones jumped off the bench, it was just like screaming, what are you doing? After Patrick Mahomes put his head to his helmet, like, what are you doing? The very next play, Patrick Mahomes went right back to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And this is also an individual that scored a touchdown yesterday, caught a touchdown pass yesterday. Mecole Hardman, who was exiled to the New York Jets before being brought back during this season, he caught the game-winning touchdown. But Valdez-Scantling did catch a touchdown pass. Give credit where credit is due, but give major credit to Patrick Mahomes for going right back to him a little bit later on, or later on in the game. But I would say to you, when I look at that and I look at the Kansas City Chiefs, even though I picked them to win, it would have been nice if San Francisco had won, because we would have seen somebody derail and knock off the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. But now that didn't happen, how can you foreshadow somebody knocking them off in the future? I don't know. I can't see it. I'm wondering about that. And I think that needs to be said. I got to ask Louis Riddick about this later on in the show. Who can do it? Is it Josh Allen? Is it Lamar Jackson? Is it Joe Burrow, who'll be returning from injury? We've seen Cleveland's defense. What about Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns? Could they do it? What about Jim Harbaugh now that he's in Los Angeles for the Chargers? Can he get Justin Herbert to elevate his level of play so they could deal with that stuff? It's going to be real interesting to see Andy Reid versus Jim Harbaugh in a regular season twice a year now. Justin Herbert going up against Patrick Mahomes. Now he's got a real coach that's going to be behind him. It's going to be real interesting to see what's going to happen there. I'm just wondering, who's going to be the chief killer? I don't know if anybody definitively can be that person. I really, really don't. But it would be interesting to talk to Louis Riddick about that and find out where his thoughts are. And so I think about it from that perspective, and I'll leave it at that. The other thing that I wanted to get into before we go to break, or go to Louis Riddick, to be quite honest with you, was Brock Purdy. Mr. Irrelevant. Last guy drafted. Comes out this year. Plays his ass off, for the most part. Got to give credit where credit is due. Didn't look flummoxed or unpoised or anything like that in the first half. Held his own. Didn't think he played a bad game at all. I'm looking at numbers here. Completed 12 of his 19 attempts against the blitz. That's 63% for 131 yards and a touchdown while getting sacked just once. The Chiefs' defense blitzed on 51% of his dropbacks, their fourth highest rate in the game under defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. I thought if the 49ers had won Christian McCaffrey, C-Mac would have been the league and would have been the game's Super Bowl MVP. Led the Niners in catches with 8 and receiving yards in 80 and becoming the first player in Super Bowl history with 80 yards receiving and 80 yards rushing in a game. Christian McCaffrey was balling. He fumbled early in the game. I get that part. That was a mistake. That was a faux pas. But nevertheless, he showed up. When I think about Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, I say, where were they? I don't blame them because I saw times and gaps where they could have been open, but Purdy went 6 for 17, 35% for 82 yards and no touchdowns when targeting Samuel or Ayuk. I wonder how much of that was about them, how much of that was about him. Purdy, he only connected with George Kittle for just 2 catches for 4 yards. How the hell did this happen? I'm not looking at Purdy. I'm looking at Kyle Shanahan. Because you doubled up. You threw the football twice as many times as you ran the football. Well, who the hell were you throwing it to? And if you got Christian McCaffrey, I know he had about 30 touches, but damn, you got to run that football. And you got to feed that beast. You got to get the ball to him. Kyle Shanahan didn't do it. And as a result, now we're sitting here talking about Kyle Shanahan. 3 consecutive NFC title games. All right? 2 Super Bowl appearances. 4 conference title appearances in the last 5 years and not a single Super Bowl championship to show for it. This is the same Kyle Shanahan that was the offensive coordinator in Atlanta when they lost a 28-3 lead. This is the same Kyle Shanahan that had a 10-point lead against the Kansas City Chiefs a few years back. And it's the same Kyle Shanahan that had a 10-point lead last night. At some point in time, what are you, the Bud Grant and the Minnesota Vikings? Losing 4 Super Bowls? What are you, Marv Levy? Losing 4 Super Bowls in Buffalo? Yeah, getting there matters, and it is tough, and it's not easy. But if you get your ass kicked when you get there, or even if you don't get your ass kicked and you just lose a hard-fought, tough game, people are not going to remember you historically for working hard. You worked hard. You really, really tried. Congratulations. They're not going to do that. They're going to say, what the hell was up? You couldn't close. You couldn't get it done. And that's what we have to say about Kyle Shanahan at this particular moment in time, despite his obvious greatness as a coach. And then after the game, for the team to be sitting there talking about they didn't know about the overtime rule. They forgot that the rule had been changed where both teams get to touch the football in overtime now. Not just the first team to score a touchdown. If you get the ball first and you score a touchdown, the other team doesn't get it back. That rule was eradicated last year. And for the players to be saying we didn't know anything about it and we didn't prepare for it. For Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs to highlight how we did prepare for it. We were made aware of it. Our coaching staff had ready for us. We practiced it all year long. That matters. For the San Francisco 49ers to say they didn't know the rule was embarrassing. It was a blemish on the part of Kyle Shanahan because you ain't teaching. And it was a blemish on the part of the players because clearly you ain't interested in reading about your own industry, your football players. You're supposed to know if it goes to overtime, we both get the ball.